Hi everybody, my name's Julia from Bobbins and Buttons. My business and my channel are all about helping people learn to sew. In this video I'm going to share a tutorial for how to do a simple applique. I've created a set of templates for letters and numbers in 2 different sizes, and these are free to download to my newsletter subscribers. So I'll add a link below this video if you'd like to sign up to my newsletter, and you can access all the free patterns that are available to my newsletter subscribers. So this is actually quite a nice little add-on to my last tutorial, which was for this little zip top pouch. The letters are sized so that the small one will fit quite nicely onto this medium size pouch, and the larger one is actually quite nice for maybe the bigger pouch, or it's been used recently in my class to embellish a sweatshirt, which I thought was really nice and elevated a simple basic like a sweatshirt. The templates can obviously be used for felt letters or for different fabrics like I've used here with this piece of cotton fabric. But in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to applique using cotton fabric that might fray around the edges. So I've used a zigzag stitch, but if you were using something like felt, I'd recommend that you just stitch around the letter. There's no need to stitch over the edges with something like felt because it doesn't fray. So I just simply use a nice simple straight stitch on something like felt. But the letters can be used in any way you like, really. They're just a great way to add a little bit of extra embellishment and a personal touch to, like I said, something like a sweatshirt or one of these little zip top pouches. I've gathered together some materials. I'm going to use the E template and use it for a little makeup bag for my daughter, using the free zip top pouch pattern, which is also available here on my YouTube channel. So I'll add a link below this video for that as well. I'm going to just use, I found these scraps in my scrap bag, so I'm going to use this kind of medium weight denim and this for the bag, and then I'm going to use this pink bit of cotton sari scraps for the actual applique. The other things that I'm going to use are some Bonder web, which is quite handy but not 100% necessary, but I'll talk through the options when we get to that part. And then I'm also going to use this fuse and tear material. Both of these are actually available on my website if you'd like to use them, but I'll explain how you can make it without either of these products as well. So the first thing to do is to iron your fabric, make sure it's nice and flat, so that we can start preparing it for the applique. And then we need to cut out the template that you're going to use. So I'm going to use the smaller E because I designed that really with going on a little zip top pouch pattern, so it fits quite nicely onto that. So this is my template for the zip top pouch. I'm just going to start by cutting that out. So there's our paper pattern, and I can see that fits quite nicely into my zip top pattern. So the next thing I'm going to do is use the template for my zip top pouch just to draw an outline onto the fabric so that I know that I'm going to have enough space around my applique when I've finished it to cut it out. But I'm going to just actually stitch it onto the piece of fabric that's not cut out into the shape just yet. I'm just going to mark that on to start with. So I'm going to try and get that on grain as much as I can, and just draw this on with chalk. So that we know where we're positioning the applique. So I'm probably going to just cut a piece of this off so it's not got so much left at the top there, so that it's a bit more manageable under the machine. So that's prepared and ready to go. The last thing that I want to do to this before we start working in it is use the fuse and tear, which I'm going to iron on the back of the area that I'm going to use for applique. So with the fuse and tear, it sort of sticks, but not as permanently as if it was interfacing. So it sticks to the back, and then you can tear it away once you've done the applique, so it keeps it nice and stable. But what I'd do if you haven't got fuse and tear is I'd just use a piece of interfacing. It's perfect if you've got sew-in interfacing, and I just iron that on the back of the fabric that you're going to use, and then just put a few either safety pins or just tack it on so it's fairly well sort of secured to the back just while you're stitching the applique. And then once you've stitched the applique, with the fuse and tear we can just tear it away, and it'll come away quite easily. And if you are using interfacing, you can just sort of trim around the edge and tidy it up that way. So here's our fuse and tear that's applied to the back of the fabric, and you can see it's stuck, but it's not so rigidly stuck that it can't be peeled away. If you were to use interfacing, obviously you wouldn't be able to peel it away if it's fusible, but that's why I quite like the sew-in interfacing option, or using fusible interfacing but not actually sticking it down, just laying it on the back and tacking it in place. And any of those options will just help it from not stretching and distorting while you sew it. That's really the aim of the game. So this is obviously easier and more convenient to use. So the next thing we need to do is to prepare our applique fabric. So I'm going to use the Bonder web to help me create this applique. So my bit of Bonder web is slightly scrappy and falling to bits, unfortunately, but on the whole you have a paper side of the Bonder web, and then on the reverse you have this sort of double-sided fusible sort of interfacing, if you like, and they're fairly well stuck together usually. So what I've done is I've drawn out the template on the paper side, but the key thing to remember is to flip the template so that it's reversed. And like I said, if you haven't got Bonder web, you can do this with regular fusible interfacing, but you don't have the double-sided, so it's not quite as efficient, but you can still get a fairly good result. So if you were just using regular fusible interfacing, I'd have the fusible side face up, and then the same as this, I'd draw around your template with the mirrored image onto the fusible side. So that's nicely fused to the fabric, and I've cut around the outline, and now I can peel back the paper from the backing, which just leaves me with this the other side of the interfacing on the back there, which I can place onto the fabric that I want to applique it to. And now I'm just going to measure and check that I'm happy with the position before I iron that again, which will then fuse it in place so it's ready to start sewing. So if you were just using regular interfacing for this part, obviously you won't be able to fuse it to the fabric, but I'd still iron it because it does sort of almost hold it in place quite well when you iron it. But then you'd want to probably put a few pins or maybe tacking around it to hold it in place for when you're actually sewing. So that's nicely held in place by ironing it on, so it's all ready to start stitching. So I'm going to use a contrast thread to do the stitching. So I'm going to go and set the machine up now and show you that. So I've got my machine set up on a zigzag stitch, and I always have a test run before I start stitching because it's really difficult to gauge it just from memory. So I definitely have a little try on a bit of scrap. So I'm just going to use a little bit of the side of the same fabric. I've set my stitch to a 3.4 width zigzag and a 0.7 at the moment, so let's have a look how that looks. And that's quite nice, but I think the stitching could actually be a little bit tighter and a little bit wider, so I'm going to go up to 3.8 and down to, let's try 0.5, and let's just try that and see how that looks. I like that a bit better, so I think we'll go for that. So because this one is all stuck down very nicely, I'm just going to literally go around the edges. We'll start at one of these corners and just follow the whole shape round. I'd obviously have to break off if it was a different letter, like an A or something with a circle in the middle, but this I can just go all the way around the outline until I get to the end. So I'm positioning it so that the centre of the foot, with a little dent in the centre of the foot, is in line with my edge, and that way I know where my stitching is going to fall at every point. Let's get started. So when you come to a corner, you need to be thinking about where your stitch is going to go next. So in this case, I need to do half a stitch let's see where that's going to line up, so that I really want my stitch to start again centred over the edge, so I need to sometimes move it around to be in that position. And there's our finished applique. So now we're ready to just turn to the back, and we can tear away our fabric that we used, if you've used the fuse and tear. Just gently around the stitching so you don't distort the stitching. And now I'm ready to cut that out and make it into a little bag. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Like I said, I'll leave the link below this video if you'd like to sign up to my newsletter, and you can download all of the free letter templates along with all the other patterns that are free for newsletter subscribers, including the zip top pouch that I'm going to make this into as well. So if you'd like to see more videos and tutorials, it would be great if you signed up to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.